In this lecture, I'm going to look at how to add free fonts to CreateStudio from two of my favorite sites. Google Fonts is where most of the people get their fonts, but I actually prefer a site called DaFont for getting free fonts. So we're going to add some interest to our text by adding interesting fonts. Now let's begin in CreateStudio. Over here on the right, where you get to your account, just below the account is a fonts label. Now this is how you add fonts to CreateStudio. Now I would have preferred that CreateStudio use the native fonts that are loaded on my operating system. That way I could load fonts one place and they'd be available to everything. That's how PowerPoint, Word, the GIMP, Clip Studio Paint, all of these programs that I use, they use the native fonts. CreateStudio doesn't do that. You actually have to load the fonts into CreateStudio. And notice too that they've got to be in this WOFF2 format. What is it? Web Open Font Format, the second edition. Now most fonts that you download off the net for free are actually in a true type format, TTF type fonts. So there's a little conversion process that you've got to go to load fonts into CreateStudio that you don't have to go through to load them onto your operating system. So we're going to go through all of this, and it begins with searching for fonts on the net. So let's come over to our browser, and let's begin with Google Fonts. To get there, you go to fonts.google.com, and here you're immediately presented with all of the fonts that are available. You can search for them by category and language and various font properties like thickness and slant and so on, or you can just browse through them. Now, all of the fonts here are free under some license or another, under the Apache license or the Open Software Foundation license. All you've got to do is find one that you like. Here's one that I think is really interesting. Hannah Lee Phil. So if I like this font, I just click on it, and it shows me all of the characters of the font, gives me some stuff. Here's the license. These fonts are licensed under the Open Font license, which means they're free, and the developer. And if I like this, I say, download font family. And it asks me where I want to put it, and it's a zip file, notice that. So I'm going to download it to downloads. That's where I put most of my stuff that's kind of temporary. And it's downloaded, and in the lower left of my browser, I can open that file so I can show it to you. You can see that what it has is a TTF file in it. This is a true type font. So we can't load that directly into CreateStudio. We're going to have to do a conversion, but we'll do that later. First, let's go back over here and we'll go to DaFont. DaFont.com. And here you can see that all the fonts are put into categories. So we got fancy fonts, we got foreign looking techno. Now, not all fonts on here are free. Well, they're free to a certain extent. They're free under different licenses. So let's go to cartoon fonts. Okay, here's our cartoony fonts. And what we want to look for is over here on the far right. You can see this font is free for personal use. I'm not interested in those kind of fonts. Here's another one, free for personal use. Shareware, and so on, free for personal use. And what we're looking for is the one that says 100% free. Wow, none of these are looking that way. So let's come over another one to the next. Notice how many, we've got 10 of these, or 110 of these windows of fonts here. There's a lot of fonts. Free for personal use. To font files. Here we go. This is what we're typically looking for, is 100% free. Most of the fonts are free for personal use and so on. I'm going to use my fonts for commercial and for personal use, so I like the 100% free. And here's a nice font, Super Mario 260 or 256. So if I click on download, now once again I'm asked where to download it. And I'm going to download it to my downloads file. And then I come here and I say open. And you can see that this contains another TTF or TrueType font. Now, TrueType fonts are really easy to add to your operating system. Let me show you this. So if you want to add fonts to any other program, this is how you do it. This is for programs that access your native fonts on your operating system. You just double click on the TTF file. It knows how to open it with an installer. It shows you the font, and then you click install. And there you go. It's installed on your operating system. So now it's going to be available in Word, PowerPoint, the GIMP, CreateStudio Paint, any program that you run on your computer that uses the native fonts. That is not the case with CreateStudio. We've got to actually add the fonts to CreateStudio. And to do that, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to extract the TTF file. So let's extract all from the zip file. And now we've got it in downloads in a directory. Now, how do we convert things? Well, we come over here, and what I did was I looked for convert TTF to WOOF. And you can find many possibilities. Now, I used to use Font Converter, but it looks like it's kind of gone out of business. So let's try Cloud Convert. It doesn't really matter. All these things do pretty much the same thing. They put a lot of advertisements around them to make money. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to convert from TTF to WOOF 2. And we select a file from my computer. And we're going to select that extracted Mario Brothers font. So I go to downloads, and here I can see is the Super Mario 256 TTF file. Or actually, this is the directory it's in. There's the TTF file. So I select this file. We're going to convert to WOOF, and then I say convert. And it's finished. Now I say download. Whoops. I say download. And it's going to put it into a WOOF 2 format, and I'm going to put that in downloads. There we go. And then what I do is I'm going to come to my downloads directory where I just created the WOOF 2, and this has to be in a zip file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to send it to a compressed zip folder. And now, once again, we've got Super Mario, the zip file. Oh, okay, without the underscores is the one that I just created. Now we're ready to load this in to CreateStudio. So we jump back over to CreateStudio and we say select the font file we want to add. We're going to go to downloads once again. And this is the one that we just created. We zipped it up and we converted it to WOOF. So we double click on that. It checks to make sure that it's a WOOF file. Let's call it Super Mario 256. And here it is. It's been added, Super Mario 256. Now, let's prove it. We come over and we create a project. Doesn't matter what it is. We insert text. And we go to the font. Now, this is interesting about fonts. When I click down on the font, the first time that I looked at this in CreateStudio, I went, oh, what have I got? I've only got 7 fonts. And notice these are the popular fonts. If I click on upload your fonts, it's going to take me to the fonts thing I was just showing you to upload a font. But here's where you get access to all of your fonts, is clicking the download or the down arrow on the fonts. And there's a lot of fonts. Very fancy. Let's go down to, grab the little bar. We want Super Mario. There it is. Super Mario 256. So I pick that, and now I'm using this font. You can add lots of fonts of interest. On DaFont, be sure to get 100% free fonts, and you can get anything from Google Fonts. By the way, the conversion of the Google Fonts is the same as the conversion for the DaFont. You unzip the TTF file, you run it through a converter, you download it, you zip it back up again, and then you can load it through the Fonts interface. And that's how you add fonts to CreateStudio. And in the next lecture, we're going to look at basic text animation or kinetic typography. I'll see you there.